most of us don't have an accurate sense of how much time we're spending on things. So self-reported data is not very accurate. There's a great book called 168 Hours that actually speaks to this, where when you actually look and actually track how people are spending time, in spite of this pernicious story, most people aren't actually working 50 to 60 to 70 hours a week. Most people, we feel very busy, but for most of us, we're not actually using that time as effectively as we could.
Welcome. You've tuned in to episode 183 of the Fitness Business Podcast. This month's premier podcast partner is Team Rockstar Fit, the mastermind team that helps fitness professionals and studios add nutrition, fitness, and online coaching to their existing business with tools from Beachbody. To find out more, visit teamrockstarfit.com. Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome along to the show. I am so excited to introduce you to today's special guest, and I have a feeling that you are going to love this week's show. Mark Fisher is a speaker, consultant, and the co-founder of Mark Fisher Fitness, which has 2 locations in Manhattan and was recognized on the 2015 Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in America, as well as one of the Men's Health top 20 gyms in America. Mark is also the co-founder of Business for Unicorns, a company that helps awesome humans become successful entrepreneurs. He's worked with brands including Sony Music, Sylvan Learning, Red Door at Elizabeth Arden, and many of the leading fitness studios across the US and the UK. I met Mark for the first time just about a month ago at the Idea World Convention, and I'll tell you a little bit more during the interview about what was a rather unusual introduction and how I actually invited him on the show. But for now, let me tell you about today's episode. We are going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite topics, which is productivity and organization. Mark starts off by explaining Inbox Zero, and he teaches us how we can get there. We talk about how to strategically prioritize tasks to put time back in your day, and he shares 3 tips for improving productivity in your week. We are about to head into this week's interview, but first I want to say a big thank you to this month's podcast partner. Team Rockstar Fit is a mastermind team that helps fitness professionals and studios add nutrition, fitness, and online coaching to their existing fitness business with tools from Beachbody. To find out more, visit teamrockstarfit.com. Enjoy this week's interview with Mark Fisher. Mark, welcome along. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Now, I want to give everyone a little bit of background about how we actually came to meet, because we only met a couple of months ago at the Idea World Convention 2018. And as it happens, you were in there facilitating a mastermind type workshop. Am I describing it correctly?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate way of sharing it. Yeah, it was sort of a facilitated breakout so that the people attending the conference had an opportunity to connect with each other and share resources and troubleshoot each other's pain points.
So Mark was facilitating this kind of workshop. And at the time, for those of you that didn't know, I actually ended up having severe laryngitis during Idea World. So I walked in and was sort of sitting very quietly listening to Mark facilitate, and kind of he had everyone in the room absolutely gripped to every word that he was saying. And I was there thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to get Mark on the show, but I can't actually ask him to come on the show. So I'm pretty sure I grabbed you at the end and kind of whispered very quietly that we needed you to come on and share some of your wisdom with the FBP family. So I'm glad that we are here today and we have made it happen.
Amazing. I'm truly honored. Thank you so much.
Now, we gave everyone a little bit of a teaser as to what we're talking about today in the Pre-Call Quickfire 5 last week. But before we even get into the topic of productivity and organisation, give us a little bit of background about you. I am fascinated to know how you got to opening your gyms and, of course, now your consultancy. And I just love your unique take on everything that you do. So give us a little bit of background about Mark Fisher.
Yeah, I'll see if I can give you a high-level version of the story. It's been a wild and unexpected road. So I think the thing that is probably most pertinent to the way my life has turned out, particularly as it relates to my career in the fitness industry, is that I was a not athletic person that loved the theater and that wanted to pursue acting professionally. And I, against all of my fears and misgivings, finally forced myself to enter the gym at the very end of high school. And I slowly came to fall in love with the gym. And over a period of several years, although fitness was something I found daunting and terrifying and frankly indicative of everything I did not like about myself and every insecurity I had around being skinny and being weak and what would girls think of me, over a period of several years, I came to like fitness. And like many actors, particularly those in New York City, it's a tough profession. And I loved fitness so much that after many years of working on myself, I am a very enthusiastic person. I love learning about things and I love sharing about the things that I learn. So throughout my 20s, I slowly got more and more into fitness, and the super fast version is essentially by my late 20s, early 30s, I had developed a very, I guess you could call it a cult following in the Broadway niche. And my particular approach was a little bit eccentric. If anyone goes to the website, they shall see, because not only did I have a background as an actor and naturally had something of a theatrical flair, but because I was working with my friends, a community of people that didn't really identify as traditional fitness people, I found incredible joy in taking what I considered to be the best practices in training and nutrition and the psychology of behavior change, and then wrapping it together with my studies throughout my 20s of classical philosophy and psychology, and then covering it in just chocolate sauce of eccentricity and bizarreness. And in many ways, that's how Mark Fisher Fitness began, particularly once I started teaching group classes, because I'd done personal training for many years. It was something of a light bulb moment where the first time my background as a performer and as a student of philosophy and as a trainer all came together, and it became this interesting palette performance art thing that I had the opportunity to share. And flash forward, within a brief period of time after deciding I was going to stick in the city and give my training career a real go at it, within about 9 months, things exploded to the point where we were looking at spaces, and my best friend from high school, I would say my non-sexual life partner, Michael, quit his job. He moved to New York. We completely burned the boats. I dumped all my life savings into this lease that we got. Michael literally moved his furniture into the home. And that was sort of why we always say we accidentally started a gym, because it happened so quickly. And Michael's background is the arts nonprofit. You probably couldn't imagine a more unlikely duo to be a gym. And to that end, it is with intentionality. We rarely use the term gym. So we don't call our members clients, we call them ninjas. And we don't use the term gym. We call our homes the enchanted ninja clubhouses of glory and dreams. And our mascot is the unicorn, and the space is just very eccentric. It's filled with a lot of people that maybe otherwise wouldn't be going to any sort of fitness studio at all. And it's been a wild and unlikely ride. And then I guess the final cherry on the sundae is we have been very fortunate because Mark Fisher Fitness has had some outsized success, both I think and I hope really with the substantive behavior change, but also doing some pretty crazy revenue numbers. We had a few cool feathers in our cap professionally that led to a lot of attention from the local and national media, both in fitness and mainstream. And then that led to a lot of people being like, what are you guys doing? What is this weird unicorn place? And then because of that, Michael and I started having opportunities to work with other entrepreneurs in fitness. I started doing a lot of speaking. And in many ways, that's how Business for Unicorns was born, which is our other company where we work with entrepreneurs both inside and outside of fitness on our particular wheelhouse, which we always describe really as the soft skills of business. So that's everything from customer service to management and team development to organizational culture. And as part of that, that's also where I do a lot of work in time management.
Well, Mark, there is so many things that I love about this story, not the least that your journey, I think, represents just what is possible from entering into the fitness industry. And what I mean by that is that gym ownership is an amazing position to be in, and a privileged position in that you, as you say, you get to help people and you get to bring people into fitness that perhaps might not have been exercising previously, but it has led you to Business for Unicorns and to opening up a whole new chapter of what you do. And I just love that. I love what the fitness industry holds and what the potential is possible in the fitness industry. And you're a great representation of that. So let's kind of take this into our main topic for today. And before I do, I just have to say to everyone, please jump onto Mark's website and jump onto his Instagram page, because every single time I jump on Instagram and you post a photo from Mark Fisher Fitness, I get this big smile on my face, because it's generally got like feathers or fluorescent pink tights, or there is something on there that just makes me happy. So
I always warn you, it might not be safe for work. So,
but it's pretty.
Depending where you work.
I love it. I love it. So look, we're going to be talking about productivity and organization. And I've got to tell you, I, for one, am a culprit of saving absolutely everything in my inbox. Like, I am one of these people that I've got emails probably date back to about 2005. And you come along and tell me that inbox zero is actually a thing. How do we make that happen, Mark?
Well, Chantal, as is often the case, there is both a skill set and a mindset component. So the easiest thing to address is I'll actually unpack the skill set a little bit and then address some of my thoughts around the mindset of inbox zero. So practically speaking, what tends to happen for most people in whatever email service provider we use, after we have read and or dealt and or responded to an email, we tend to leave it in our inbox. And then we delineate between things that have to be addressed and things that have been addressed, simply between is it opened or unopened. And a lot of people develop systems where they will purposely keep things unread if they need to go back to it. Depending on the email service provider, another thing that I see done is people will star an email with the intention of going back to it later. And I don't know that any of this is wrong. That's the first thing I'll say. Like, I don't know necessarily that system is wrong, but I think objectively, it's just going to be less efficient than getting things out of your inbox after you've dealt with them. So essentially, when someone is processing an inbox, ideally, whenever an email comes in, if you're dealing with your email in a thoughtful way, and I also suggest most people are best off doing it in very dedicated, disciplined, 3 to maybe 5 times per day, and ideally not much else. And that's a whole other challenge for a lot of people. Once the email comes in, you're processing it. If you don't need it, you can immediately delete it. If you're reading it, you just need to absorb the information. Perhaps you're CC'd on something but don't need to respond. You can archive it. And archive is the key to inbox zero, because what that means is it's still saved, but it's not in your inbox. If you can respond immediately, your third option is respond immediately. If it's something you can quickly respond to, go ahead and do it. And then again, archive, get it out of your inbox because it's been dealt with. And on the rare occasion, sometimes you'll have an email that requires more thoughtful response, in which case, again, there's different ways of slicing this pie based on the complexity of someone's work systems. But there could be a case for leaving your inbox to deal with it later, because really what we're looking to do is make the inbox essentially a digital to-do list, where if something is in the inbox, that means there's something we need to do. Either we need to respond or there's some other thing that needs to be done before we can archive that and get that out of our inbox. So the one other skill set thing to address, if someone is listening and if they feel brave and inspired and they're ready for life inbox zero, essentially and this depends a little bit on your email service provider. Most people use Gmail. I know today's day and age. So if you go up to the top left above all the boxes where your emails are, you can actually select all and select all of your emails. You can unselect the ones that you want to keep in the inbox because you need to deal with them, and then archive all of them, get them all out of there. And then ideally you have one page where for most people, it's going to be rare that we have more than 50 outstanding items we need to. So a good email inbox, in my experience, should rarely be more than one page, unless you've been away for time and you've just had a lot backed up, which is perfectly all well and good. And if someone is not using Gmail, there are all sorts of other Obviously, depends a little bit on the email service provider. Admittedly, some systems are better than others. Outlook in particular tends to be a little bit more challenging. But to find how to do that with your email service provider, it's pretty easy because you can just Google it and find it out and take action on that. Now, the last thing I'll address really quickly, as I mentioned, is the mindset issue for a lot of people. There's like a mindset thing around it. It's so interesting coming from the world of fitness, which ostensibly is about sets and reps and body fat and weights, but in practice winds up actually dealing a lot with emotions and feelings. And time management, I have discovered, is not dissimilar. A lot of us get very set and satisfied with certain routines and habits, but sometimes those routines are drastically, powerfully inefficient, and we're getting by, and that's not wrong. Because one of my mentor, Craig Ballantyne, says every minute we waste is a minute that we've robbed that we could otherwise spend with our loved ones or relaxing or doing other high leverage work to move the ball forward. So I'm not sure everyone needs to do inbox zero. I'm certainly not here to shame anybody if somebody's like absolutely adamant they don't want to do it. But my suggestion is, if someone is really looking to make the maximum positive impact with their life, if that's something, a mission that they share, then looking to rid our lives and sharpen, solve all these little inefficiencies can have a powerfully transformative effect, not just on our headspace and our ability to be present and do high leverage work, but also quite literally just being more effective with our time.
I can completely relate to what you're saying about the mindset side of things, because I know when my inbox is full to the brim, I feel the weight of that. And I feel the pressure to have to go through and have a look at it. And I really like that piece of advice that you gave about going to the top, selecting all, and then just deselecting the stuff that you need to focus on. Because I think, speaking personally, I do leave a lot of stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there. So I really like that strategy. And the other thing that I'll just share with everyone, and Mark, I'm sure you know this particular app, but one of the things that I am certainly no inbox zero person, I would like to work towards that. But one of the things that has helped me is the app or the service that is called Unroll Me. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
That has been one of the best things.
Lifesaver, right?
And for anyone that doesn't know Unroll Me, I'll put a link in today's show notes. But basically what that is that I don't know how frequently it is. I feel like it pops up maybe once every 2 months or something like that.
Yeah.
But it comes to you and it says, okay, I have found all of these emails or these newsletters or companies that you subscribe to. Would you like me to unsubscribe you? And you can go through and there might be like 20 on there and you can go yes, no, whatever you want. And just in one click of a button, it takes you off those email lists. And it is a beautiful weight lifted off your shoulders.
Just fantastic. Unroll.me is absolutely a huge game changer for so many people.
I love that one. Now let's talk about to-do lists, because all of the listeners of the show know that I've got a certain strategy on how I handle my to-do list, and I would love to know from you about when it comes to really trying to manage what sometimes feels like a bit of a never-ending to-do list. How can we actually strategically prioritize our tasks to get more done and to put some time back into our day?
Yeah. So in my experience, I think one of the things when I work with clients on time management that seems to be a consistent challenge for a lot of people at first is the first step of a good time management system. One of the absolute pillars is creating some sort of external brain. So one of the truisms of the space, a quote by a gentleman named David Allen, who created Getting Things Done, GTD, which is one of the best systems ever for time management, has an amazing quote. He says that brains are for having ideas, not for remembering them. Brains are for having ideas, not for remembering them. And that is very true. In fact, there is a cognitive quirk that the brain has that's called the Zeigarnik effect, which essentially means that when we have an open loop, when there's something that we know we need to do, we haven't written it somewhere that we trust we get back to later, your brain rightfully is going to keep remembering. It's going to keep distracting you. It's much like a puppy that is hungry, that is not taking no for an answer. So having an external brain and getting things out of your head into some sort of information capture system, whether it be an analog notebook like I use, the Notes app on your phone, an app designed for this, something like Evernote perhaps, maybe Google Docs, that is an amazing first step, and that's super awesome. But until the to-do list there's some system to organize it so it exists in time. It can make people miserable and sad and crazy because it can feel like this overwhelming list of things that aren't prioritized. We're not sure when to get to them. And there's never a sense of accomplishment in a day. And there is, as I continue to belabor this point, I think a mindset element to effective time management. So what we're looking for is getting to the end of the day and being like, yes, I did it. I got things done. I did the things that I said I was going to do. And admittedly, the process now, in theory, this concept is pretty easy to understand, right? We take things that are a amorphous blob of things we need to do, and then we organize them in some meaningful way in time. Now, that could be everything from using a Google Calendar if you want to do it in digitally. My own system is very crude. I essentially label each day of my notebook with a day, and I sort of arbitrarily dump the things on there that need to be done with some awareness of deadlines, particularly when it comes to discrete tasks that I know need to happen in the next week or two. I usually have that labeled out a week or so. So there needs to be some moment of strategic thinking when we organize the things we've captured to do and then make them exist in time. And the other thing about this that is worth mentioning up front, this concept is very simple to understand, but in fact, it's actually challenging to execute because most of us, when we start trying to make our to-dos exist in time, will not be good at estimating how long things are going to take. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly normal. And every master was once a disaster. So there's not really a shortcut for that other than like anything else we start, we got to get the reps in, right? I mean, knows fitness understands, clients, you're always going to feel like a baby deer at first. And over time, by thoughtfully analyzing how long it's taking you, in my experience, people will get better at it, but it's something I always want to just warn people up front. Can be frustrating at first because at the beginning, we might schedule X amount of time to write a blog post or X amount of time to do a task. And sometimes it'll go under, but unfortunately, usually it's going to go way over. And over time, most people get better at guesstimating how long things take.
Mark, last week during the pre-call Quick 5-5, you actually touched on what you do in the morning to kind of set your day up for success. And I think you also mentioned that you have like a nighttime ritual as well. Just in case anyone missed that last week, can you just briefly touch on those? Because I loved the way that you set your day up, and I'm keen to hear how you round off each day.
Yeah, certainly. So I do have a pretty rigorous nighttime ritual. I try to. I'm not always perfect at this. Sometimes there's periods of heavy work where I'll do a little bit of email cleanup before I go to bed to make the next day easier. But I try whenever possible to be done at least 2 or so hours before. And when I say done, what I essentially do to end the day is I just look in my notebook. I look at my disorganized blob of things I've generally signed to do the next day. I think through my priorities, what needs to happen. And I make a meticulous calendar for the things I'm going to do when I wake up. And so for instance, I'm looking at right now. So for tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. I give myself 30 minutes to snuggle with my dog and meditate. At that point, I will go grab my coffee and I will grab my athletic greens. Then I will read for 30 minutes. So 7:30 to 8 is reading time. 8 to 8:15. I'm working on a presentation. I'm speaking at Perform Better, which is a fitness conference here in the States in Chicago. And I'm dusting off this presentation to make sure it's ready to go to kick some butt. From 8:45 to 9:15, I'm working through our membership Infusionsoft series for when someone signs up for Mark Fisher Fitness. I'm just reviewing it because it's been 2 years and I want to make sure it's as dynamic and as concise and as gripping as it can be and really give people good information to set themselves up for success. Then I allow myself from 9:15 to 10, I'm going to clean out my inbox. I'm going to hit out Facebook, do my social media correspondence. I have a few emails I need to write. And by that point, I'm ready to have a healthy snack and then go do my mid-morning workout. So the thing that I think is worth knowing about that, and again, I'm not saying that other systems are wrong per se, but you'll notice I'm up at 7, but I'm not touching email for the first few hours. I'm focusing on these high priority, high leverage items. And for me, that is because I definitely do my best work in the morning. Not everyone's like that. There are different chronotypes, which is just a fancy word that means some people do their best work later in the day. But for me, from the minute I wake up, I am crisp. And that clock is ticking, I'm getting crispy. So I don't ever want to waste any of those first few hours doing anything other than my most important tasks that are the most challenging, require the most creativity. And that is essentially how I start most days. And what's nice about this is, and this is no doubt, this is something I'm sure other people on this podcast have spoken about. Again, when you're talking also about this sense, the science or this art of feeling like I'm doing it, this art of feeling like I'm moving forward. By 10 o'clock, like I'm pretty good, like, because, I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes days get really weird, right? At that point, the rest of my day, I can be a leader to my team and I can take meetings and, occasionally I'll have a fun day where it's like on the lighter side, I can get back to some of these projects and I can do some more continuing education. That's amazing. But I know that for that first half of the day, I've really moved the ball forward and taken care not just of my business needs, but also by taking time to meditate and getting my workout in and making sure I have a couple good meals in. I'm also taking care of the biological inputs. And coming from fitness, no doubt, I have a very strong bent that humans are not robots. And it's very important to understand, we know this as fitness people, that we also need to take care of the physiological inputs for us to achieve high levels of productivity. That it's not just enough to have these systems. We also need to make sure we're taking care of sleep and there's all sorts of practices that individuals can adopt, but we need to take care of those fitness and physiological inputs as well, because we are not robots. We're biological entities, and that is key for not just peak performance, but I might suggest happiness.
Mark, I love everything that you just said. I think so much because I can relate to so much of it. I know that personally, I really have that energy and that clarity first thing in the morning. And I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but we actually had Mike Bledsoe on the show, and Mike is from the
I love Mike Bledsoe.
You know Mike?
I just hung out with him the last week.
Oh my God, there you go. Okay, so he told me this quote and I live by this. He said to me, don't start your day with emails or you'll end up as someone else's priority.
Man, it's so true. Another great quote along those lines I heard once is, email inboxes are convenient organizing systems for other people's to-do lists. I was like,
That is exactly right. So I just find like I actually have that on a Post-it note up on my computer screen. And I interviewed him probably 2 years ago, and I've had it up there ever since, because it just reminds me that, you really do need to set your day up in the fashion and in the way of how you want it to run and how your priorities are and your goals are, because the second you open up that email, you attention is diverted. So I just wanted to share that with you because I love that, and it's so in line with what you were saying. So we finish each of our shows with Fitbispiration, and I'm hoping you can leave us today with your 3 very best tips for improving productivity in your week.
Yeah, I have a few that are useful. I think the first step, to successful productivity for me actually always starts with getting clear around one's vision of what sort of life you're looking to create and how you're looking to impact the world. So it's hard, I think, to effectively discuss time management and separating it from one's vision and one's personal values and one's mission and how they hope to service their communities. So I think one tip for maximum productivity is just making sure you have a clear sense of where you're going. It is another apocryphal story, whether he told it or not, this sort of famous Stephen Covey parable about climbing up a brick wall very aggressively and very efficiently, only to discover you are on the wrong building. So I think it is important before we strap on the time efficiency jetpack that we make sure we're going in the right direction. So that is definitely, I think, one piece of that. I think another tip that is incredibly useful is another exercise that is valuable, and that is, I think, doing a time audit. Now, time audits are an exercise that probably a lot of people are familiar with. And of course, it's deceptively simple, but when you do it, it is often sobering and unsettling. And what that is essentially you want to track how you're using your time for a week. And ideally, you're tracking down to the 5-minute increments. You're really tracking over a 7-day period. How are you using your time? And a couple things to keep in mind when this exercise is proposed. Number one, most people will always be like, well, this isn't a typical week, right? It's never a typical week, right? I would do it, but well, this isn't a typical week, right? Number two, interestingly enough, and this is very similar to food consumption, and it's very similar to our spending habits. Most of us don't have an accurate sense of how much time we're spending on things. So self-reported data is not very accurate. There's a great book called 168 Hours that actually speaks to this, where when you actually look and actually track how people are spending time, in spite of this pernicious story, most people aren't actually working 50 to 60 to 70 hours a week. Most people, we feel very busy, but for most of us, we're not actually using that time as effectively as we could. And my third and final tip is a quickie. And again, it's not going to be the right fit for everybody. I want to keep saying one of the challenges of personal productivity is just like fitness. If you feel like you're being told you have to do something, you're going to resist against it. So I keep wanting to give everyone listening permission. You don't have to do any of these things if you don't want to. I want you to at least consider it. I want you to think about, is there value in it objectively? But I don't want you to feel pressure. I'm telling you to do this. But I'll tell you what, my third tip, taking push notifications off your phone is very importante. Now, it depends on your job. It depends on where you're at in your career. There are moments where if you're, for instance, growing your fitness business and you need to be available, and we know that following up quickly on prospects can be an important thing. If you don't have a team, you have to do that. That might be you, and I totally understand that. But when you can move to a place where you take ideally at least email notifications off your phone. And for most people, I'd suggest Facebook notifications off your phone. There is probably a world where you can leave perhaps things that are more of the moment, like maybe Twitter tends to be or require a little bit faster response. And what I personally do, which is very bold, and I'm not saying anyone else needs to do this, my phone is always on Do Not Disturb. So if there is a text message notification, it'll show up on my lock screen if I check it. But my phone does not beep, my phone does not buzz, and everyone that I work with on my team knows that if something is time sensitive and email is not the best way to do it, I'm going to inbox 3 to 4 times a day. So I'm still going to be responsive. You're never not going to hear from me within a few hours. But if pirates are attacking the Ninja Clubhouse and you need me to come and defend the clubhouse, an email is not an effective way to get my attention quickly. We should probably be doing a phone call at this point. So I think using that system, if you were excited by that and that tantalizes you, does require, I think, some effective communication of your particular system to the people that you're working with, both your team and your clients. But I think mastering our personal tech is so incredibly important. Personal tech is an amazing servant. It's an amazing tool and is a terrible master. And my final thought about this is we live in a world where the current trend towards personal tech is these devices, these platforms, these social media channels are designed with an understanding of human psychology and cognition to make us addicted. And again, I say that without judgment. I just observe that. But what I also want to share is the kind of high leverage, high impact creative work that we want to do to move the ball forward, to say nothing of the ability to stay present with someone. We're looking to connect with them in a meaningful and human way. And we all know that's more than just our work. That's our ability to be with our loved ones in our lives. If we have a brain that is trained to get itchy and is trained to wait for that buzz or that beep or that like, and we're so used to constantly checking in with that, I suspect that is not the best thing for our long-term brain health or our ability to create this sort of quote unquote deep work that allows us to really empty onto the world our unique gifts so that we're leaving the world empty and giving everything we got during our brief time in our mortal coil.
Just wow, first of all. And second of all, I am so excited that you mentioned that push notifications, because I implemented that practice about 12 months ago after Trina Gray. The wonderful Trina Gray actually said that to me, and she's a woman that I look up to and admire so much for what she does and what her productivity levels are incredible. And she said to me, turn off your email notifications. And it took a lot of guts for me to do it, but it transformed the way.
Wow.
Great. Yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I had actually forgotten about it, and I don't think we've talked about it on the show. And so I'm so excited that you've shared that with all of the FBP family. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is your point about time tracking. There's actually a great app that I used because I was in a situation a couple of years ago where I was really thinking, man, I just feel like I'm spending so much time on these certain projects. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to just actually look at it properly and analytically and track it. So I used a fantastic free tool, which is called Toggle. It's TOGGL, and you can jump online and check it out. And basically, it's just like a stop-start button on your computer, and you can write the task that you're working on and start it when you begin and stop it when you end. And I found it a real eye-opener because, like you said, there was stuff that, for me, I thought I was spending hours and hours working on something, and I realized, actually, no. I wasn't spending that long, or other tasks that I thought were taking me 2 minutes and were actually taking me 20 minutes, so
Right.
I love that concept. Mark, this has been incredible. I knew it would be, and I'm so excited. And I want to encourage everyone to make sure that you jump onto the show notes today. I'm going to put links to Mark's website, to all of his social media pages, because you must check them out like we talked about earlier. Mark, any last messages to finish off on today?
No, I would just say I want to acknowledge you're great at this, Chantal. I do a lot of these. What a pleasure. Good job.
Well, look, the pleasure is all mine. And as I said to you, I'm so glad that I was able to whisper to you that day and invite you on the show, because I knew straight away that you would just be a phenomenal guest and add so much value to all of our FBP family. So, Mark, thank you so, so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Precore Quickfire 5.
This week's Precore Quickfire 5 guest is best-selling author, speaker, and fitness entrepreneur, Greg Justice. Greg, welcome along, and thank you for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, we are going to kick things off with the Precore Quickfire 5. Can you start by sharing with everyone, why do you do what you do?
Absolutely. And that's simply because of my mission and my purpose. And my mission is to elevate the professional and ethical standard of an industry for which I have great passion. And of course, my purpose is to educate, empower, and inspire anyone that I come in contact with.
And share with us one ritual that helps you become better at what you do.
Well, I think the most important ritual for me is my morning ritual. I'm a very early morning person, and I'm very regimented about my quiet time, doing my daily devotionals, my prayer and meditation, and my breathing and flow movement series.
Oh, I love that one, Greg. It's so important. And I'm not sure if you caught my session at Idea, but one of the things you talked about, is just how important that morning routine is to really kickstart your day on the right note. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, are there any apps or systems that you use to stay in control of your workload?
Well, we use Mind Body Online, and that is my scheduling and kind of keeps me on track of knowing what I'm doing each day and kind of keeps me in line.
Excellent one. And what's one book, podcast, or blog that you'd recommend and why?
Well, of course, the Fitness Business Podcast.
Great answer.
Outside of that, the books, I'm going to give you a couple because it's hard for me to give you just one. The two that have really, really resonated with me are Start With Why by Simon Sinek, of course, and then Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect. I found both of those just to be almost life-changing or life-altering. They're just such powerful messages that I think anyone can benefit from.
They are fantastic recommendations. And I don't know if you caught it, but we actually had Peter Docker on the show a couple of months ago. Now, he is the co-author of Find Your Why, which is the follow-up book to Start Your Why.
Yes,
so
and I love that.
Yeah, he was amazing guest on the show. I love that book. And tell everyone just briefly what topic we're going to be focusing on during your main interview next week.
Sure. We're going to be talking about how to build a legacy business through something that I call treadside manner, which is a little play on a doctor's bedside manner.
I'm so excited to have you on the show, Greg. Well, thank you for joining us today for the Precore Quickfire 5.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Before we finish off today, a reminder that, of course, the resources, the links, and a transcript for today's show can all be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you to our foundation partner, Active Management. If there's a hole in your lead bucket, you'd fix it. Our founding partner, Active Management, will help you plug the hole in your online lead generating channel with a free download at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/active. Thanks for joining me for another week of the show. I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.